Sakacharya Ashtottara Chata Srimad Abhay Charanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So welcome to this morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reciting the verses from Canto 4, Chapter 25, the characteristics of King Puranjana. And we are covering two verses, text 48 and 49. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We will together recite 48, translation and purport. Text 49 I'll read alone. Yeah. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sukastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Visham yati saurabham Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. Prabhuji. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakasabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. Mataji. Nalini Nalini cha prag Dvarau ekatra nirmite Avaduta sakastabhyam Vishayam yati saurabham. What to what meaning? Nalini, of the name Nalini. Nalini, of the name Nalini. Cha, also. Prak, eastern. Dvarau, two gates. Ekatra, in one place. Nirmite, constructed. Avaduta, of the name Avaduta. Sakha, with his friend. Tabhyam, by those two gates. Vishayam, place. Yati, used to go. Saurabham, of the name Saurabha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Please repeat with me. Similarly, in the east, there were two sets of gates named Nalini and Nalini, and these two were also constructed in one place. Though these gates, the king accompanied by a friend named Avaduta used to go to the city of Saurabha. The two gates named Nalini and Nalini are the two nostrils. The living entity enjoys these two gates with the help of different avadutas or aids, which constitute the breathing process. Through these gates, the living entity goes to the town of Saurabha, the aroma. In other words, the nostrils, with the help of their friend the air, enjoy various aroma in the material world. Nalini and Nalini are the pipes of the nostrils, through which one inhales and exhales, enjoy the aroma of sense pleasure. Text 49, I'll read it. Mukhyā nama purastadvas tayapana bahūdanau vishayau yati purārad rasajña vipaṇānvita. Mukhyā, the chief, nama, called, purastat, on the eastern side, dva, gate, taya, by that, Āpaṇa, of the name Āpaṇa, Bahūdanau, of the name Bahūdana, Vishayau, two places, Yati, used to go, Purarat, the king of the city Puranjana, Rasajña, of the name Rasajña, Vipaṇa, of the name Vipaṇa, Anvita, along with. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The fifth gate situated on the eastern side was named Mukhyā, or the chief. Through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasajña and Vipaṇa, he used to visit two places named Bahūdana and Āpaṇa. Purport. The mouth is described as the chief of the most important gate. The mouth is very important entrance because one has two functions to conduct with mouth. One function is eating and other is speaking. Our eating is done with the friend Rasajña, the tongue, which can taste so many different types of foods. The tongue is also used for speaking, and it can speak of either material sense enjoyment or Vedic knowledge. Of course, here material senses enjoyment is stressed. Therefore, the word Rasajña is used. Let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing the pastimes of Puranjan. So in the past few verses, Narada Muni was explaining how Puranjana was utilizing its senses and enjoying the material nature. So if you remember, recall some of the few past translations, we see the Narada Muni was saying, the great sage Narada continued, "My dear king, those two, the man and woman, supporting one another to the mutual understanding, entered the city and enjoy life for 100 years. So that was the Puranjana was doing. And in the subsequent verses, it was mentioned, many professional singers used to sing about the glories of King Puranjana and his glorious activities. When it was too hot in the summer, he used to enter in a reservoir of water. He would surrounded himself with many women and enjoy their company." So these are some of the activities how Puranjana was enjoying his material life using through his material senses. Even if you see this translation, the same thing, if we go in Sydney also, nowadays it's summer, if it crosses more than 30 degrees, we see many people will go to the Bondi Beach, Manly Beach, and everywhere it's filled with many people, right? Same thing we can see. This is how Puranjana, when we are reading the Puranjana story, we can see in the material world how we are also involved in such activities. So, in fact, the Puranjana story, it reflects our conditioned nature in this world, right? So, from all these verses, we have seen King Puranjana is enjoying the material world. But when we see this context, right, here Puranjana is completely involved in sense enjoyment. But the key thing is in all these verses, the current today's verse and in the previous verse, it was mentioning how the senses are being utilized. What is the purpose of those senses and how Puranjana is utilizing. So when we can see another example of Ambarish Maharaj, where he was utilizing all the senses in the service of Lord, like eyes to see the Lord, nose to smell the flowers offered to Lord, and tongue to recite the scriptures and to taste the prasadam, legs to use to go through the various dhams to take the darshan of Lord, right? So like that, he was utilizing all the senses in the pleasure of the Lord. But in this context, we see the more of the material enjoyment. So when we see such things, like the Ambarish Maharaj, like people like Ambarish Maharaj are very less in the current scenario, in the material world, right? But whereas, more like Puranjana, many people are there. So in this way, we see most of the sense enjoyment we are in the negative context. In all these examples, we try to see in the negative same way how these senses are being used. But there are positive sides, which there are less people following that and very less thing. When we see all these material senses and material senses, how it is fitting in overall in the material world context. If we see the key ingredients of material nature, we see, right, the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And the next, the subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So these are the key material elements. And apart from that, we have jnanendriyas, through which we acquire the knowledge, like ear, skin, eye, tongue, and nose. And then working senses, karmendriyas, voice, hands, legs, anus, and genitals. So these are all the various senses. These are the senses where we are seeing through in these current verses. So, and apart from that, these senses, we have sense objects, right? Sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. So through all this, we can understand how senses are being utilized. So through sense objects, like the sound, touch, form, these instigate senses for the desires. And when the interaction of the senses and sense objects generate the desire, and then the conditioned nature will follow the cycle of perform the various activities of the sense enjoyment. But how this being utilized? In this material world, majority of them are utilizing in this wrong way. Because of this, the sense objects, when we see the particular object, we try to get a desire. And our mind, our intelligence will work together and dictates our senses to perform various sense enjoyment activities. So when we see, if we try to go back, why these senses are coming under the negative way, then in a negative way means fully trying to enjoy the material nature. If we try to understand its creation, before that, how we came into the material world. So first thing, the same material senses are being utilized in a sense enjoyment mode, in the negative context. Why these senses have developed this nature? If we go back a little bit, it is our desire. When we were in the spiritual world, we are serving Krishna. But momentarily we got a desire to enjoy the world, like this material world. How we got the desire? Example, I think I quoted this example previously as well. So if you are going on a street, suddenly you see a nice celebrity using very luxurious car, or some branded clothes he was wearing. The momentarily you see, oh, what is such a nice car, I should drive such a car. You may get instantly you get that desire. Then later you may overcome the desire, but that momentarily desire will bring you into this material world. Even though you may not, later you may recall, but the momentarily desire. I remember Baba Prabhu quoted one more example a few weeks back, where you are daily eating dal and rice. Suddenly you wanted to eat some kind of rasgulla or some other sweet, right? That momentarily desire from your regular spiritual practice will bring you into the material world, right? So that is how we trapped into this material. What Krishna does, okay, this soul wanted to enjoy his material world, let him enjoy. Then what he did? He created this material world. The creation of this material world involves all these elements which we discussed. Gross elements, subtle elements, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, sense objects, through which this material conditioned soul will enjoy. Why this required? If we understand a little bit deeper, when we were in the spiritual world, our nature is serving Krishna, always. Jivere Swarupa Krishnere Nitya. That is our mode. But as soon as we come into the material world, if we want to enjoy, we should erase completely Krishna from our mind, right? Our consciousness. And how we are able to do that? Krishna is performing these things through these material ingredients created, like karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, and if we see a little bit, not just by creating, how the process of creation happened when creating these material ingredients. See, if you see the second canto of Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni and Brahma conversation happening, where Narada Muni was asking Brahma that by seeing all the activities, Narada Muni was thinking that Brahma is a creator. And then the Lord Brahma, of course, Narada Muni is not such an ignorant person. Whatever questions being asked by Narada Muni, it is for our benefit, for our conditioned soul to understand that. But Narada Muni is putting all these questions to Brahma. And Narada Muni was asking Brahma, you are a great creator. Then Brahma is saying, no, I am not the creator. Beyond that, there is one more Supreme Lord is there. He is doing the primary creation. And after that, Karana Srishti, Karya Srishti, right? So he is doing the main primary creation, and Narada Muni, the Brahma is doing the secondary creation. So when Supreme Lord is creating this primary creation, he is creating all these ingredients, which Brahma using them to create these living entities based on his past karma, based on his karma and swabhava, he is usually utilizing all these ingredients of these senses and all these things, and he is giving the new body. But how that process is happening, if you see, it was explained in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is, so first thing, Mahavishnu is glancing this material nature. This is called Pradhana. Most of you heard in the second canto. So Pradhana, it is nothing, it is material nature, but it is unmanifested, where in this Pradhana state, the three modes of material nature will not be active. So it will be in a subtle, unmanifested state. Then when the Supreme Lord glances this material nature, then the three modes will be active. And he impregnates the living entities. How he impregnates living entities is material nature, the karma, swabhava, and kala. Three things will come into this material nature. And when the time is induced in this material nature, then as time progresses, these three modes start acting. And when these three modes, first it comes with a goodness. In that way, it will become a Mahatattva. It's slowly the time and the modes become active. Then after goodness, passion will come. And finally, mode of ignorance. This is where Ahankara comes. At this Ahankara state, all the senses sense objects. And like if you see ahankara interacts with the goodness, it will create all the mind and all the demigods of the senses. And ahankara, this ignorance, interacts with the passion, and it will create all the senses and intelligence. And ahankara interacts with ignorance, and then it will create sense objects and all other things. So this is how the basic underlying creation is happening in the mode of ignorance. And these all the senses are being created in the mode of ignorance. With this process, what is happening? By default, any conditioned entity coming into this material world, these senses, you will be fully in a ignorant state, in a unconditioned nature. So they will forget Krishna's relation. So that's how we all forgot our relation with Krishna. Though in a spiritual world we are very conscious of Krishna, through these material elements, what is happening? Everything, we forgot our relation with Krishna because of all these material conditioned nature entities, and these elements are created under the ignorance stage, ahankara. So that's how all we forgot our condition. So in all these cases, how the hierarchy is there? First jiva is there on the top, then intelligence will be there, then the mind will be there, then the senses, sense objects, and so this is how things will work. So let's take some analogy examples, how our mind works, just to understand, like we are seeing that all these Puranjana pastimes, how mind is involved in various activities which are non-Krishna conscious. Let's try to understand what is the key element which is instigating our mind to perform various such activities. Example, as we see the hierarchy, top one is soul, then intelligence, mind, senses and sense objects. These are the hierarchy we can see. Let's see when you are, like we had a Sunday feast, in the last Sunday we had a big kirtan. So there was so much nice food, burgers, pizzas, everything were arranged, right? Suppose you came to the temple, you didn't know the menu, but you had a full lunch afternoon and you came to the temple. But as soon as you see the burger and pizzas, what will happen? You start thinking that, right? So here we need to understand what is senses are involved here. Senses are our eyes. And you are seeing, sense object is seeing. And you are seeing what? Burgers and pizzas and all the nice, yummy food, right? So by seeing that, even though you are not hungry, you had full lunch, but what will happen? Your mind, your senses will, you start desires come first. By seeing through senses and sense objects here, acting in such a way that you start getting desire. Then you will see your intelligence becomes. Intelligence, again, if you are intelligent enough, if you are spiritually advanced, what will happen? Your intelligence will tell, no, you don't need, you already had a good lunch, don't, but your intelligence is not spiritually advanced. What will happen? You would try to eat the food. This is how the senses and sense objects drive us. This is how, like all we, Puranjana and ourselves, we go to many such instances, right? So these sense objects and senses will, if you are materially oriented, then you will try to, even though you are not hungry, you saw the yummy food and you try to grab and eat it. Right? This is how our senses interact. This is how our senses engage in our sense enjoyment activities. The key element here we need to understand is our intelligence. Intelligence is the key factor which will tell you, if you are spiritually advanced, your intelligence will guide in a right way. If you are spiritually not advanced, or if you are materially oriented, you don't mind. Yes, okay, I saw nice food, I will eat it. Your intelligence will direct that way. Your senses will dictate your your mind will dictate your senses will take that and your sense objects will enjoy. So this is how senses and sense objects will interact to fulfill your desires. And the mind will take the dictate to senses, and the mind will take the instruction from intelligence. This is how all your desires will be fulfilled. So another example we can take is, you saw nice flowers, right? So as soon as you smell, you get nice flowers. Here also again senses you are seeing, and sense object, smell, flowers generate nice smell. Now your mind will I want to have a nice smell of the smell, I want to smell the flowers, that my desire will come. But your intelligence should be the key thing. Whether my intelligence, if you are spiritually inclined, no, let's first this offer to Lord, then after that I'll smell it. If intelligence is materially oriented, let me enjoy the smell of beautiful flowers, right? So this is how our senses, sense objects, and we are involved in fully entangled in this material world. Like though Puranjana, the nice verses are very interesting verses from all this, how each of those verses it is explaining what is the purpose of the sense objects if utilized in the Krishna conscious way, how we can, if people are utilizing in the material oriented. So these are the various things we can understand from the, so underlying reason is these all how these material elements are created and how we are utilizing it. What is the objective ultimate purpose, but how we are utilizing it. So if you see how we should be live utilizing our senses and how we are to utilize, like nice verses from Bhagavad Gita we have, like in the 5th chapter. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyat sukhame vasi navadware pure dehi naiva kurvan na karyan. So the translation is saying, when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. City of 9 gates means this material body, right? So neither working nor causing to work done. So in the same verse, Srila Prabhupada explaining the purport, he is mentioning very nicely, quoting from Shvetasvatara Upanishad, right? The purport he was mentioning, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of living entity, is controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and anus and genitals. The living entity in this conditioned stage identified himself within the body. When he identifies himself with the Lord, with himself, he becomes just as free as Lord, even while in the body. So, living as Supreme Lord is living in our heart. When the living entity identifies himself as a body, he will fully be involved in enjoying this material world. But when you know that Supreme Lord residing in your body, means it is like a temple. You need to take this body as a temple properly. Then when you, in that consciousness, you renounce all those activities of sense enjoyment. You will use this, all the body and senses, in the service of Lord. So this is how Prabhupada was mentioning. And in 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also it is mentioned. Right, it is mentioned the manifestation of mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Now, when we are in the previous verse, we said like we need to understand that Krishna, the Paramatma is present in our body, in our heart, as a Lord. But when you understand that, you will use the body considered as a temple, and you will. But for that, what is required? Knowledge, right? To get that knowledge, that Paramatma knowledge is required. How you get the knowledge? When you are in mode of goodness. When you are in the mode of goodness, you start acquiring this knowledge. So then you will understand. When you are in the goodness, then you will get the knowledge, then you will apply. So then you will see that you will be able to understand the purpose of our body. This is a temple, and utilize in the service of Lord. So apart from that, now we understand these senses are how we know why the purpose of the senses, how we need to utilize these senses for that knowledge which is required, right? But how we can, knowledge is there, but what is the process we need to follow in order to come out of this passion and ignorance state, to be in the goodness and understand the knowledge. So how we can overcome this ignorance stage, and how, so that our senses were fully purified, and then we can use in the service of Lord. For this, if you see in the 3rd canto again, Kapila Muni explaining this very nice in Devahuti, Mother Devahuti, he was telling all the instructions, do's and don'ts, through which we can purify our senses and use them in the service of the Lord, right? So some of the do's, if we consider, devotional service is executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, who is in separate, is considered to be the mode of darkness. So in this verse, so people may be performing, this is, after all we are in the conditioned world, each one will be in a different level. Their consciousness will be, some people will be in the topmost devotee, some people will be Madhyamadikari, some people will be in beginning state, and some people will be not in a devotion. They want to do the good devotional service, but in the conscious wise, their conscious is not pure. So they may be internally anger, they have anger, they may be proud, or they feel envious of other. So in all these constant things, people may be performing devotion. But Vishnu, in the purport it was mentioned, we need to respect those devotees, we pay obeisances, but do not associate with those such devotees. So, because they are not pure yet, when you associate with such devotees, your consciousness will change. You will be doing, you may be pure in your consciousness, by seeing the other person doing such things, you may influence. So, we need to avoid such association. So, people who are doing the devotion service with proud, anger, and many other negative qualities, we need to try to avoid association. You pay obeisances, pay respect, but you need, like same thing, Pandita Samadarshini, right? We need to see all the, like the dog, Chandala, Brahmana, everything in equal. What does it mean? Even tiger, everything. But when you see, you need to treat respect that way. But when you're dealing with them, you need to understand how you should deal with them. Try to avoid, like if your tiger is there, since it is a soul, Pandita Samadarshini, we can't see it in an equal way, right? When the tiger comes, you need to you consider it as a soul, but at the same time you need to protect yourself. You can't simply ignore it. It is a tiger, it is a Pandita Samadarshini, right? You need to reciprocate in such a way according to the status of that animal. But at the same time, you need to understand that Paramatma is there in that living, that's all, right? So this is how we need to understand when you are performing the devotional service. And there are many instructions. The worship of the deities in the temple by separatists with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. So when again, people may be performing the devotion in that ignorant state, that's what we discussed. In the passion state also, people try to namesake, for any other material gain, they want to. So such things also, we need to avoid the association of such devotees. Then we will not be influenced by. Then, how can we identify the pure devotee? What are the symptoms of the pure devotee? So we understood the devotees performing devotion in the ignorant state, devotees performing in the passion state, but we cannot associate, should not associate with those such devotees, but we should associate with a pure devotee. Then what are the symptoms of pure devotee? Again, Kapila Muni was saying, the manifestations for unadulterated devotional service is exhibited with one's mind, is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Right? So, the person he always thinks that Supreme Lord is residing in everyone's heart. And he is very much attracted to the holies of the hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Such person we need to associate. And Kapila Muni is further elaborating. A pure devotee does not accept any kind of liberation. Other qualities, symptoms, right? Like Salokya, Shastri, Samipya, Sarupya, Ekatva. Even all these things, it doesn't. Right? Even Shikshashtakam also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying that, right? I do not want any material opulence. I only want your devotional service. Right? So in the same mode, any pure devotee will behave. And a devotee must execute his prescribed duties which are glorious, without material profits, without excessive violence, should regularly perform one's devotional service. So here some of the key points, right? We need to perform the devotional service without any material gain. And the next one is, it should regularly perform. Same thing in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, it is there. Savai pumsa parotharma yato bhakti yato kshaja ahetuki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. There also we can see, we should not have any material motive, and it should be ahetuki and apratiyata, right? So these are all the various instructions Kapila Muni was explaining in third canto. When we follow all these instructions, our senses will be purified. So, and there are further instructions. The devotee should regularly see my deities in the temple, touch my lotus feet, and offer worshipable paraphernalia and prayer. He should see in the spirit of renunciation from the mode of goodness, and see every living entity as a spiritual. So this is the consciousness we need to have, like go to the temple, take the darshan of the deity, touch the lotus feet, touch the lotus feet, offer all various paraphernalia, and see, and with all the mode, what is renunciation? Again, in the sense, we should not look for any material profits. When you are coming in the temple, when you are seeing the deity, when you are performing service, you should not have any material desires in your heart. With a pure renunciation mode, you need to perform all these things. Then and you need to treat all other entities as a spiritual. Then how you will develop that? Everyone is a soul, not the body. You don't identify it as a opposite person, as a person who is standing before you as a body. See it is a spirit soul, and Supreme Lord Paramatma is staying in the heart. When you see, if you try to see every living entity with connection, what will happen? You always remember Krishna, right? So every living entity you encounter, you first think connect with, okay, Paramatma is living in your heart, and whatever things he is doing, with the sanction of Paramatma, he is doing it, right? So with that mode, when you try to see everyone, I know it is very hard, theoretically easy saying, but applying that is a bit hard. But when we try to apply wherever possible, what will happen? We constantly think, remember Krishna. We constantly remember holy name of the Lord, right? With our consciousness. This is how we can constantly remember Krishna. So coming to the temple, seeing everyone as a spiritual entity. And further instructions there. The pure devotee should execute devotional service by giving greatest respect to spiritual master and acharyas. And he should be compassionate to the poor and make friendship with the person who are his equals. But all his activities should be executed under the regulation with the control of the senses. So you need to connect with the bona fide spiritual master and acharyas and celebrate their Vyasa Puja, disappearance day, Tirupava day, do austerity, fasting, wherever is required. With all these things, what will happen? Our senses will be gradually purified. And a devotee should always try to hear about spiritual matters, should always utilize his time in chanting the holy name of the Lord. His behavior should always be straightforward and simple. Although he is not envious but friendly to everywhere, he should avoid company of persons who are not spiritually advanced. So, and these are the do's, and there are certain don'ts, right? Those don'ts also we can see from the Kapila instructions. I am present in every living entity as a super soul. If someone neglects, disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply a imitation. This is what. So if you try to simply, if the super soul is living in everyone, but you don't bother about, you ignore it, you neglect it, but you still try to do the service, it is not it's just imitation. It is not considered as a service. And one who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples but does not know that Supreme Lord as a Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart must be ignorance as compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. So you are doing the deity worship, but at the same time, people who are living standing here, if you don't see that same God, the deity, Supreme Lord, is present in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. You need to understand, if you don't connect to that aspect, then you are offering the oblations into ashes. That's how Sage Kapila Muni was explaining. One who offers me respect but is envious of the bodies of the others is therefore separatist and never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards living entities. So again, so in summary, what he is saying is, Supreme Lord is Paramatma, is there everyone, everywhere. Whatever devotional activities you do, you need to remember that aspect and deal with all other people in the same, with the same mode, considering that he is a Paramatma is there, he is a spirit soul. So when this is all things happening, when we apply in our life, so all our senses gradually be purified. So we will not just following the, we will not be like another Puranjan, but we will be following the footsteps of our great Acharya, great devotees. So when that is how we can come out of the Puranjan consciousness to devotee consciousness, by applying all these great instructions given by the great sage Kapila Muni and many other Bhagavatam, many such instructions there. By following that, we can purify our senses. All our 9 gates will be illuminated with knowledge, and then we will happily progress in our devotion. So I will conclude here. Any questions, any comments? Yes, Prabhu. The senior devotee, the pure devotee, we can see that first criteria is you yourself know where I am standing and what is the other person is standing. So by your consciousness, you can judge that, okay, this person is a sincere devotee, senior. Associate with, see why first of all, we need to understand why we want to avoid association of the materialistic qualities who have the negative consciousness, but they are doing. Why we are trying to do? See, why we need association? We will be inspired. By seeing their activities, we will get inspiration. So that we will progress in our life. That is one of the key element of association, right? So when you are discussing with a devotee, when you are associating with a devotee, you try to absorb his qualities and you try to apply in your life. So that is the key thing in our association, the key aspect. So with that understanding, you choose the people. So if the person is doing the deity worship or doing some service, but outside he is coming and criticizing everyone. So you obviously you don't want to get into the association with, right? So use your consciousness. Pure or senior devotee, any devotee who is more advanced than you. It could be any brahmachari. It would be obviously sannyasis and spiritual master. Definitely they are advanced. But in our normal day-to-day gathering, you decide with your consciousness who is more advanced than me. Then associate with that person. Then you will try to follow his instructions. You will get inspiration by doing his services, by seva. You will get inspiration, you try to. So that's how you need to decide. The key element is to inspire the devotion activities, what he is doing, the inspiration. Yeah. So, okay. See, avoiding association, that's what it's not that you don't need to talk to them or you completely abandon them. That is not the meaning. That's what I explained. When you give the instructions to them, right? Otherwise, we know all the conditioned soul will be isolated, right? That is not the objection of the purpose of this thing. See, association means, that's what, the key principle you need to take that. Association is, to motivate you. If you want to get the inspiration, you may associate with the higher people. But as part of your service, you give the book distribution, you feed the prasadam to all other who you feel that you are lesser conscious at the beginning, initial stage, or they are having negative qualities, something, you try to motivate them to come out to the level of devotional service. That is what you need to do. The association for your advancement, you need to say that way. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so your question is how yes. So that's what the intelligence is, the mind and intelligence, it will store all the impressions of the past. Right? So through that you may get it that see, when the living entity is impregnated in the material world, he is impregnated with the living entity with the karma and swabhava. That swabhava means nothing but all the past impressions. So that will instigate your desires. So that is another way. But okay, yeah, that's how we can see. Even though it's most of the times it is sense objects interaction, but your past swabhava, the past impressions, will try to dictate your mind and intelligence to fulfill the desires. Yeah, so I know. When I was reciting those instructions, I was telling that it is practically different. But only the simple thing is meditate these instructions daily in the morning time, so that you remember constantly. If you do 1 month, 2 months, or 1 year, you will remember these instructions. When you remember the instructions in your mind, when you see the people, you will connect, apply. Right. So first thing is remembering, meditating on those instructions, and then you will apply. So that's it. It's a process. Gradual process. It will not happen in overnight, but it's We need to start somewhere. You could keep remembering all these, like Kapilai's instructions. You remember all these instructions and try to meditate on this every day. Then you will remember. And then when you start applying slowly, so it will come there. And of course, Paramatma is there. He will guide you. If you are sincere enough, obviously it's not our own endeavor. We have our endeavor, but again, His mercy will be there. When we are sincere in the efforts, we will get there sometime. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय.